When A Quiet Place released in 2018, it was a hit with mainstream audiences, taking what could have been a gimmick and turning it into a tense experience. Long periods of silence are common in horror movies as characters are forced to hide and sneak around, but more impatient viewers find a lack of dialogue mundane. Watching people creep around in the shadows isn't always entertaining when there's no emotional investment in the characters. Despite being classified as horror, A Quiet Place and its sequel are sentimental movies which tug on the heartstrings of the audience. The original is more a story about coping with the loss of a family member than it is a story of an alien invasion. The monsters, referred to as Death Angels in the lore, are a force of nature rather than a defeatable opponent. The scope is small, leaving many details unexplained. If you begin to pull at loose threads in the plot, it becomes unraveled. The image of a newspaper with a headline reading "It's Sound" is an exceptionally blunt way of delivering exposition to the audience, opening up the question as to how this newspaper was ever printed and distributed in the first place, especially now that the invasion is shown to have occurred suddenly all around the world. The lore is intentionally underdeveloped. We still don't know why these overpowered creatures chose to feed on a planet which is mostly water if they can't swim. On an emotional level, it's effective if you can overlook the contrivances of its plot. Functioning in a similar capacity is Bird Box, which was also released in 2018 and utilized a similar concept, involving sight instead of sound. In Bird Box, the characters can't open their eyes without going insane, but only while they're outside, so they paint over the windows of the car and use GPS to get to their destination. After seeing whatever it is that the audience never sees, some characters off themselves, others instead turn evil. The incoherent lore makes Bird Box a movie that is easy to poke fun at. The premise is what makes it stand out in a crowded genre, but contains inevitable plot holes. A Quiet Place fares better, but isn't perfect. It's not as psychologically terrifying as Hereditary, which was released the same year. A Quiet Place has more in common with Jurassic Park in that it's both a horror movie and a popcorn movie. It has an uplifting and optimistic finale, leaving some hope for humanity. A Quiet Place ends with a scene which is basically, now we know how to defeat the creatures. Part 2 ends in a similar way, except it's, now we know how to defeat the creatures on a larger scale, though it's never been a post-apocalyptic franchise about winning a war against alien invaders. In A Quiet Place Day 1, the lead protagonist Sam, played by Lupita Nyong'o, is on a journey to get a slice of pizza with her cat Frodo before the downfall of civilization. This may sound like a joke, but it makes sense within the context of her character. When the movie opens, she is in hospice care and doesn't have long to live. Sam is already facing imminent death when the rest of the world is confronted with it en masse. She is in a unique position as someone who has already accepted her own mortality and simply desires to relive one nostalgic memory before passing on. Sam meets a young man named Eric, played by Joseph Quinn, known for his breakout role in Stranger Things Season 4. He's a young college student with his whole life ahead of him, paralyzed by a fear of death. Eric follows Sam along like a lost animal, and they form a loving bond. The movie is even more of a character study than its predecessor. In one scene, we witness a puppet show as Sam struggles with her lack of freedom. In another, the performance of a magic trick represents an attempt by the characters to live in illusion for a moment, and forget the impending doom which awaits them. These are symbolic scenes which don't advance the plot along, but provide expression for the characters, who have every reason to talk as little as possible. Though John Krasinski co-wrote and directed the first entry in the franchise, Scott Beck and Brian Woods created the story and characters. Beck and Woods weren't involved with Part 2 and haven't necessarily moved on to bigger and better things, as their latest creation was the movie 65, another lone wolf and cub knockoff whose premise was, what if Adam Driver fought dinosaurs? A Quiet Place Part 2 was written and directed solely by Krasinski, but was mostly a retread of ideas from the original, with a budget 3 times as large. The creatures were seen more often and in plain daylight. It didn't have the same tension because the characters could now defeat the aliens in combat. The franchise has the appeal of a video game, where the characters must sneak around to evade their enemies, and every small mistake is paid for dearly. A Quiet Place released in 2018, 5 years after The Last of Us came out on PlayStation 3. There are similarities between the first two movies and the iconic narrative-based stealth game. The Death Angels use sound to track their targets, like clickers in The Last of Us. A Quiet Place even opens with a scene in which a child secretly takes a toy against his father's wishes, which also happens in The Last of Us with the brothers Henry and Sam. The production design and action set pieces in Day 1 feel video game inspired, but it's the dramatic performances which allow the movie to transcend its genre. A Quiet Place Day 1 is written and directed by Michael Sarnowski, though John Krasinski has a story credit. It was a smart decision to bring in Sarnowski, whose debut feature Pig, starring Nicolas Cage, is one of the most impressive directorial debuts of the past 5 years, relying on Cage's rarely used complexity, as opposed to his crowd-pleasing freak-out maneuvers. A Quiet Place Day 1 is a step up in terms of scale and budget, but Nyong'o's lead performance is every bit as nuanced. The acting is strong throughout. Alex Wolff, who played a significant role as the son in Pig and the son in Hereditary, brings us into the movie as Sam's compassionate nurse, and Joseph Quinn brings it home as a traumatized survivor of the initial attack. Djimon Hounsou reprises his role from Part 2 and is given an intensely emotional scene. Frodo the cat is also a key character in the movie, getting more close-ups than many of the human characters. It's unfortunate that the chase scene on the docks is in the trailer, because it's a major moment of the finale given away in advertising. The trailer reveals the larger action scenes, but the creatures are more terrifying when shown from the perspective of darker, claustrophobic environments, like when a character is pinned underneath a car, or passing through a flooded subway. A Quiet Place Part 2 took a cue from Aliens, ramping up the action and multiplying the opponents. Sarnowski approached the film with an admission that there are enough New York disaster films for it to be considered its own subgenre. Day 1 continues to increase the scale with a full-blown attack on New York City, but most importantly, the characters are front and center. 2024 has seen an abundance of quality dystopian content, including the Fallout TV series and Furiosa: A Mad Max Saga. A Quiet Place Day 1 represents another piece of our cultural fascination with humanity's complete destruction. More than just horror survival, A Quiet Place Day 1 is a meditation on the acceptance of